So when we talk about building a scene, what you really think about first and foremost is something like these sort of dioramas. And the great thing is, in your box, we've included the cardstock so that you can literally start with one of these diorama cards, even if it's the first time you've ever done something like this, right? So when I say the cards are coming in the box, let me show you. The card that looks like this is what you're going to need to make the diorama, okay? Now, these are 5 inches square, which is exactly the right size you'll see for the outer die piece. So if I take our first outer die, you can see that fits on there beautifully. And how we designed this one is we designed it so that you can either have half or it will connect and cut the other way around, which I'm going to show you in this project, so you can create a full cut in front. And these dies are all like our creator card style, so they don't have an outside cutting edge. So for a card like the one that I'm showing you here, what we're going to be able to do is we're going to be able to, first of all, do our inking, and then when you place the die on, it'll do all of that cutting out. Okay, so let me show you. I'm going to start with the inking. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to fold in those side bits because we don't want to get ink on there, okay? And I'm going to use our holly leaf. It's a nice bright green colour. And one of our, just a round sponge applicator. I'll get a nice fresh new one on here. And we're just going to put a bit of green on. Now, the way I find it easier to do this is actually to put the colour down onto the glass mat first of all. We'll need quite a bit. So I can pick up the colour directly onto the sponge applicator and drag it onto the side of the card. And all I'm doing is colouring that card green to begin with. And this is the beauty of ink pads. You can make the card any colour you want. So I've got a little bit of green down the side. Again, more ink on here. And we're just going to keep building up that colour. Now, we're not going to need any colour on the inside of the card because bear in mind that's going to be cut away. And also a bit of a tip, you want to then take just a baby wipe, keep your mat clean that you're working on because we don't want to get any colour on the back that's not planned to be there, okay? Now, if you remember the card that I've done, we've got that lovely kind of speckled effect around the outside. And how we get that is you're going to use just a water spritzer and a little bit of paper towel. So that paper towel, what we're going to do is we're going to lift the colour out of the card. So as I spritz this on, and I can take it from quite a, there we go. If I just, you want less of a mist and more like little droplets on here. And the longer we leave those little droplets, you can see it's starting to work down on the corner here. It's starting to just lift the colour out of there and give you that lovely mottled effect. And then once the colour's on there, as we press down with the paper towel, you can see it lifts that colour out. And it gives you like what we call a faux bleached effect. So it's just a different look again. And you can either do this with a spritzer, or I know some people like to just drop little water droplets. So then we're just going to put some little droplets on here. Less of a spray and more of just the droplets. And then that will just lift the colour out. There we go, some big drops. So that is our card prepped, ready to do the die cut piece with it, okay? So you can see, well, and I have got a bit of dirt. This is what I'm saying about trying not to get dirt on here, but we can easily cover these over with some paper at the end. Now this die, you can see there where the fold line is, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to position the die over the front of the cardstock. So what it will do is it will stay connected, but it will cut out everything in here. So when you're doing this, a really great tip is make sure you get some low tack tape, and we're going to hold this in place as we cut through. So we've got this perfectly positioned, hold that in place with a little bit of low tack tape, and we're ready to die cut. Now I did design all of these dies specifically to fit through your Gemini Junior. So I'm going to work with the large Gemini, but the Junior plate, so that you can see that, right? Now, it's quite an intricate die, so I am going to add in my metal shim. So what you're doing is you're cutting into the metal shim, okay? I'm going to slightly angle this. Can you see, instead of having it going in straight on as we hit it, I'm just going to ever so slightly angle this so that the rollers hit it on a slight angle. We're going to put the clear cutting plate. You're then going to have your magnetic and then your other top plate, and that's the sandwich as we need it. So like I said, either the big Gemini or the regular Gemini. Now of course, as I always say, these dies will work on any machine. It doesn't have to be a Gemini machine. However, it is quite an intricate die, this one, and so you are talking about needing a lot of pressure. So if you aren't cutting with the Gemini, what I would say is you're probably going to need to run it through a few times. So you can see there, because we've cut with the Gemini, you can see just how beautifully, intricately that's cut. And then what I'm going to do is we're going to cut and emboss it. So you add on the embossing mat, and the rule is take away the other black mat. You don't want both black mats in there at once. And we don't need our metal plate anymore because we don't need an immense amount of pressure, just a little bit. And what that will do is it will force the fibres of the cardstock into all the embossed pieces on that card. Just gives a little bit of a different feel. Okay. So if I lift that out now, and I just take a little pokey tool and we're going to just ease that cardstock off, ease the tape off. Now it doesn't matter that I'm tearing the cardstock here because this is all going to become waste out of the centre. What I am going to do is just lift that out so you can see what I mean here when I say it's going to cut away and leave that piece in the centre. I'll just take some scissors and cut a little bit of that away so that you can see that effect. Okay, so you can see there, it gives us that lovely cut-in detail along the front. Then what I'm going to do is just poke out all these little bits that are left in the die, and we're going to turn round the die and do exactly the same on the other side. Now what you'll find is the way we've designed this die is that it will perfectly connect together at the two edges. So you won't realise that it's two half dies that are meeting. It'll feel like one continuous die going all the way around. And if I open out that little piece that we had on the side, you can now see how we've got that diorama shape. Now while we've got that diorama shape, if you noticed when I put on the ink, I only put it around the very edges because what I want to do is I'm just going to use a little bit of, I think sandstone would be lovely to give a bit of a different shading and colour. So I'll show you how we do that. Again, I'm just going to bring in a nice clean sponge for the end. I'll pop the sponge on the end and I'm going to do the same. I'm going to put the sandstone in the centre so that then as I'm rubbing this round, it's going straight on the edges there. And because these are the harmony inks, they're going to blend beautifully between each other. So you see, you won't see where the sandstone kind of finishes and the green starts. They're just going to blend beautifully in. So that is the outside of the card, ready for us to do a little bit of decoration too, right? So that is how you create that effect like you saw in these sort of cards here, where you have the outside piece with that beautiful design. That's how you're going to do that. Now for the rest of the card, if I bring you back into the card, you see, what I've done is I've now started telling my own story. So we want to create all those little pieces that go in the centre. And I can show you how we can do that. So, for example, if you want to create the grass along the bottom, we're going to use some of the cardstock that comes in, and this die here is the grass. So when we position this on, depending on how deep you want your grass, you would position the die either right at the bottom, if you just want some thin grass, or right near the top, if you want some deeper grass. So you'll see what I've done here is I've actually positioned that quite near to the top. And then to get that little bit of shading, all you're going to do is you're going to use your ink to ink down the top. And I've done that with the pine tree colour, just to give a little bit of variation. Now you would do exactly the same, if I show you this one here. This has been done using this die, which is designed to look a little bit like the mountains, okay? So you can use it different ways. You can see how we've done the cut line there, and then use the ink just to give us the mountains. So you can see how we're building up different levels in our card. And then also what I've done is I've used that same die and I've done it in the brown. So we've got a few different colours that we're using just to build up different levels of the scene in the background. So they're all using those additional scene dies that are coming included. And you can see each one of these, the same if you want to use the bells along the top, they're just all different pieces that cut at different levels. So in the background, you've got your other half of the card. It's always important when you do these diorama cards, you're going to use 2 of these. So it's exactly the same. It's the 5-inch square base with the 2 inches either side. And you can see that to create the diorama, that one is going to come and sit on the top like this, and then again at this side. So that one would connect onto there, and that gives you the diorama. So we're going to work on the back piece at the moment. Now what I've done first of all is I've just taken some cardstock and stamped the little birds on the top there. So that's just going to go into the background. Now when I'm sticking flat on the background like this, my preferred glue is the all-purpose, just because it gives me that little bit of manoeuvrability time. I'm just going to manoeuvre that into place, and I've cut that exactly to the 5 inches. When I say exactly, it's cut there, and then I can just trim off the bottom what we don't need. So that's giving me the background to start with. Then to build up the rest, it's just a case of telling the scene however you want to tell it. So I'm going to have some trees in the background. I'm going to bring some mountains into the foreground just below it. And notice these look like different trees as I'm doing them. That's because one of them I cut with the die this way, and the other one I turned the die around and cut it this way. So it looks like 2 different sets of mountains. If you had the same twice over, it probably wouldn't look very genuine, to be honest. And then we're going to position just down here, we want the grass on the bottom. So I'm just building up that scene in various layers, and I'm going to stick those into place. And I've used that double-sided foam tape just so that we get that little bit of a lift to give a little bit more dimension in the background. So that's our base. Now, you've got loads of options of how you're going to decorate it, okay? And the great thing is we've got lots of these, the little houses, and then the little houses also matching. You can either use the die-cut houses, or on the stamp set, we've also got little stamped houses that we can be working from. So some can die-cut and some can be stamped. And if I just show you a little tip for the stamps, okay? If this is the first time you're using the stamps, get one of your sponge applicators and just peel the backing off the stamp and give them a good rough over with the back. And all it does is it just takes off some of the coating on the back of your stamps, and it means when you stamp them for the first time you'll get a much crisper image. You know, when you get brand new stamps you tend to have to what's called stamp them off. So you're going to stamp them a few times on some scrap paper. It's just to take that coating off. This is a way to enable you taking that coating off much easier. So you can see I can take that little house now and then just pop it on just a rocker block. I'm using a ginormous rocker block here. You don't need to, you can just use a smaller size. And then all we're going to do is a little bit of ink. You see how well the ink takes to the stamp now because we've done that. And then all we're going to do is stamp, I'll do it up in the corner, stamp that little house. And you can see you can get that lovely, clear, crisp impression that you're going to be able to stamp, colour in, cut them out, or you can do, obviously you've got the dies that match in with the stamps as well. So I'll just show you, I've got loads of those ready already. I've done myself some little houses and just coloured them with some sparkle pens. Then also, you've got these beautiful trees. Now I will show you how all of these work. If I take, for example, the tree. Now on this tree, you'll notice the cutting line stops at the bottom because it's not going to cut out. So if I show you how you're going to need to do this, if I take this and pop it on here, again, a little bit of tape just to hold it in place. And you can do that. We've got a couple of different trees. You can take the other tree. We can do the same here. I'll cut them both so you can see an example of both of these. Just a little bit of tape to hold that in place. Exactly the same sandwich. They're not ridiculously intricate dies, so I'm just going to pop them on without the metal cutting plate. We're going to add the plastic shim. We're also going to add the magnetic shim and then put the other cutting plate on top and send that through the machine. And the whole idea of these not having any cutting on the bottom is so that if you do want to build them into a scene, so if you want to use them, for example, if you wanted to cut these and have them sticking up, connected in with this, you would cut it out of your green cardstock and just position it in place. I'll show you exactly what I mean here. So if I take each one of these, take this tree for example. If you imagine this tree was on a much larger piece of cardstock, it stays connected in. So that what you can do is you can cut away the sides and we can have a tree which is connected onto a little mound of grass. So you've got the option. Or, in this case, I just wanted a lot of little trees, so you would just snip them off. Same with the larger tree here. You can take it, it can either be in situ by cutting along to the cutting pieces, and then we've got a tree mounded into a little piece of grass, or in this case I'm just cutting it out. So if you wonder why and you think, have we missed a little bit off the dies? We haven't. We've designed all of the dies in this collection in that way so that you have the option. So let's just have a look. I was going to position a couple of these, the houses. Now when I'm doing gluing like this, I like to use the 3D glue gel, and it just means that you can get a little bit of shaping. So we can just shape our houses like this, and then just pop a little bit of glue gel on the back, and then we can position them in place wherever we want them. Some houses and then also some of these little trees. Now, when it comes to putting the whole card together, what I've done is I've just further enhanced one of these that I've got ready. So can you see, all I've done is I've cut another piece of grass and stuck it behind just to strengthen that bottom piece. And then on the top here, I've just cut another set of those vines and stuck them behind as well, so that you've just got like a double layer of those vines, and it just makes your card a little bit stronger. So if I show you the one we've just made, and you can see the difference. This is the one we've just done, and it is quite flimsy and weak. The card is still a little bit wet though. So just to strengthen that further, just those couple of bits of card on the back, just give it a little bit something else. All right? And then when it comes to sticking it together, personally, I find a tape pen is definitely the best option to do this with. The tape pen or either a little bit of wet glue. And make sure you pop plenty of it on. So if you look, I'm putting 3 strips on there. I do want plenty on, and then these are going to line up beautifully. And then just to cover these white bits, I've got a little bit more of that lovely cardstock. Again, using the tape pens, and again it just gives it another layer of card on there, so it's just going to strengthen it even further. And then to finish it all off, I've got loads more trees, and also if you notice on the little set of dies, you've got this lovely deer, you've got the toadstools, so I've done myself lots of little bits just that I can stick on to finish it all off. And then don't forget, in the kit, we've also included things like the lovely ribbon, some sentiments, so that you've got no excuse not to finish that card off to perfection at the end there. And I've just done a really simple once upon a time, and then a little bit of a bow. And you can see how whatever the story is you're wanting to tell, you've got all of the little pieces there to enable you to do that, whether it's with the little houses, the fairy tale castle. But I wanted you to understand exactly how we're going to use that lovely big die to create those beautiful diorama scenes to look into.